The SpaceX Starship is a mammoth, clocking in at a whopping 120 meters in height with a weight of 5,000 tons when holding a max payload. It is objectively huge. SpaceX CEO Elon Musk has now given 4 presentations about his company's Starship rocket. But all of those updates mostly focuses on vehicle's external stats. Musk has barely touched on the technologies needed to keep people alive and healthy, while on Starship technologies that need to be developed relatively soon if the spacecraft has any hope of carrying people to deep space destinations like the Moon and Mars in near future. The spaces that Musk has given for Starship are definitely impressive for any rocket. The vehicle will supposedly tower over 165 feet tall with a diameter of 30 feet. At his latest presentation in Boca Chica, Texas, Musk claimed the final version of the rocket will be able to launch 150 tons to Earth orbit. But what exactly does SpaceX plan to do with all the space? I mean, you can throw some satellites in there for a few Starlink launches or sell some space to companies. But what about people? What can Starship pack in for the 100 to 200 people that SpaceX plans to inevitably bring on board? Let's find out today. First of all, let's uncover the interior of Starship. That will support life for people traveling to space. The crew configuration of Starship includes private cabins, large common areas, centralized storage, solar storm shelters, and a viewing gallery. Out of that small section alone, there's quite a bit of helpful information. Most importantly, SpaceX will have a dedicated queue function of Starship. That means that things can be much crazier than previously anticipated. While to many at first it might have seemed ridiculous to suggest that Starship could take between 100 and 200 people to space, it's much easier to see how easily this could be accomplished. But of course, that also includes SpaceX's mini laundry list of various rooms and configuration changes. Starting with private cabins. These cabins seems like a no-go for a ship like Starship at first, especially considering the closest we have ever gotten is SpaceX's Dragon 2 Crew capsule. Even then, a Dragon 2 only contains 9.3 cubic meters of pressurized volume or a minuscule 0.85% of the total capacity. So if we are looking with 50 to 70 private cabins with 2 to 3 people in each, for this 100 to 225 people, even with the total capacity of Dragon 2 capsule at 9.3 cubic meters, Starship will use just 400 to 700 cubic meters of its payload volume, so that's 42 to 65 of just Starship's pressurized payload volume. That leaves 36 to 58% of the rest of the volume for open spaces, additional shelters, bathrooms, storage, life support, and more. A lot of things is not accounted for when talking about cabin space, and this is definitely included. Bathrooms are the main necessity if you are going to space. So whether they are communal bathrooms in halls or individually placed room bathrooms, in whatever form they all must be interconnected and flow to waste management and water reclamation centers, where water could be filtered and reused and waste disposed of. Additionally, there must be some food in Starship storage that can be either in the form of a central food bank or cafeteria, or everyone could receive rations for their time on Starship. With the amount of space unoccupied by private cabins, it could go either way. Keeping in mind that you can dedicate 100% of ship's pressurized volume to living quarters, luckily this is one of the problems that SpaceX is looking for quite a long time. So while many people overlook life support entirely, until it rushes something rudimentary, SpaceX is already on it. But if SpaceX wants to put people on Starship for an extended period of time, things become much more complicated. life support system add weight and complexity to the vehicle. Astronauts need places to exercise and sleep, air to breathe, and water to drink. And if Starship is supposed to start a lunar base, which Musk has proposed numerous times, then high radiation environment on the moon will require advanced forms of shielding. All of these problems will be highlighted when sending crew to Musk's dream destination, that is Mars. However, SpaceX is trying to build the best life support system aboard Starship. This life support will be using the pressurized space, excluding rooms and the like. Life support system must supply the right mixture of gases for people to breathe and remove carbon dioxide from the air before it builds up to a dangerous amount. The right temperatures and atmospheric pressure have to be maintained. Astronauts will need drinking water along with a place for waterways to go. Of course, life support is much more complicated than this, with hundreds of thousands key aspects that are connected together to keep the crew alive. Along with the human necessities, Starship will provide an entirely pressurized volume. As such, this is going to be a massive use if vehicle's total volume. For oxygen requirement, there is a growing case to use oxygen generation on board. The technology behind the ISS's oxygen regeneration is miniaturized, usable through a process called electrolysis. Fortunately, SpaceX will also use this process to cover some other support tanks such as reclamation, waste disposal, and even fuel management. By combining the new released hydrogen with carbon dioxide released by every crew member, astronauts can create water and methane. Obviously, this water can be purified and can be used by crew, while methane can be transferred to Starship's fuel tank. But this process isn't perfect. There is still a large gap between usage and generation, meaning that SpaceX will still have to dedicate part of its onboard volume to oxygen, water, and other containers. However, that would be likely to stored in the Starship's centralized storage or a specific area locked off for the general crew. This storage area can be used for personal belongings, additional oxygen supplier, and literally everything SpaceX wants on board. It would also serve as a central area for the crew on board, including several common areas to choose from. Luckily, SpaceX Starship has more than enough space for virtually anything. Musk says only 5% of SpaceX's resources are being used to develop Starship at the moment, which may explain why the rocket is the sole focus. At some point, the human will need to be addressed though. It's just a matter of when, and that wraps up our today's episode. What do you think about the Starship's interior system? Would you like to add some more section in Ship 20 to support life? Let me know in the comments below. Give me a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't. Thank you so much for watching.